Welcome to the podcast, Creating Value in Travel and Transportation, hosted by Landry Holy, CEO and founder of Fairval. In this podcast channel, we will exchange with entrepreneurs, industry experts, financial institutions, and investors on how they contribute to creating value in various travel verticals, thanks to new innovative tech solutions and financial services. So, if you have an interest in travel retailing, hospitality, urban mobility, maritime, aviation and space tech, then this podcast is for you.
Hello everyone and welcome to this new episode of Creating Value in Travel and Transportation. To catalyze transformative value in the rapidly evolving landscape of mobility, a fusion of innovative thinking, strategic leadership, and what's often termed as smart money is essential. Like in many industries, VCs play a pivotal role not only by funding transformative innovations, but by actively partnering with entrepreneurs who dare to redefine mobility. So there we are. Venture capital isn't just about capital. It's about courage, dedication to create new value, and a clear-eyed vision for the future. Well, in our discussion today, we are privileged to encounter this exceptional mix with Orlie Sol Gruper, general partner at MobiliTech Capital, a venture capital firm with a laser focus on the mobility sector. Hello, Orlie. Thrilled to have you with us today.
Hi, fun to be here.
Great. So, could you start by detailing your professional journey, which then has led you to your role at MobiliTech?
Yeah, so basically, I'm a mobility nerd. 19 years now in mobility. Started in the Air Force in aviation. I was in the room of missions of an F-16 squad, then commander, of course. And after the Army, I was recruited to operate a private aviation fleet. After that, I did a BA in business management and then founded an electric motorcycle company, which 10 years ago I sold my half. Then I went on to represent the Israeli transport sector in the European Commission and in Europe for joint R&D. Then I was the executive director of EcoMotion, which is a smart mobility community with over today 700 startups and 15,000 community members in the field of smart mobility. I'm still on the advisory board, but in June it will be 3 years now since we started the fund, and 3 years of being with the investor hat. 5 years ago, I also founded Women in Mobility here in Israel, which created kind of little ripple effects all over the world. And I also have a podcast, but it's in Hebrew, so sorry, which is backed by the Ministry of Energy, called Energy on Air. And me and my partner, which is he's an energy nerd, we want to make this whole revolution of energy and e-mobility accessible to all. So kind of breaking down all the buzzwords and explaining really hard topics like hydrogen at an eye level. So that's in a nutshell.
Wow, that's quite a busy career you had so far.
I like being efficient. I'm also a mom of twins. So
Okay,
it's a
that's
productive,
efficiency.
yeah, it's a productive pregnancy to do two at once.
All right, excellent. As you mentioned, EcoMotion community, can you talk a bit more about it before we go into the topic of MobiliTech? I'm quite curious to get more insight. What are the type of topics you work on? I mean, as you've been one of the leaders in this community.
Yeah. So as you know, startups can't grow within a void. So the goal was to create an ecosystem, a community that brings together all the different players, which is investors, which are fueling or energizing the startups, the global industry, which are the clients, the government, which supports with regulation and grants, academy for research, service providers, and then bringing them all into one community, but putting the spotlight on the startups, which are bringing the innovative solutions to today's challenges. And it worked. Today, like I said, there's many different startups, and mobility is becoming very, very wide. So it's ever growing, the sectors and the domains that the community is focusing on. So it's really shifting, but you would have typically 5 sectors: so autonomous and connected, electric mobility and energy for mobility, mobility as a service, and supply chain logistics, and maritime aviation.
Okay.
So 6, I think. And yeah, but today mobility touches, and this is also in the fund when we say we're a mobility focused fund. Mobility is insurance, mobility is real estate, mobility is the way we create cities, mobility is energy, and it's geopolitics, and mobility is even walkability is mobility. So even facilitating good walkability in a city is having that mobility mindset. So every human moves.
Yeah, I hear what you say because it's really, I mean, the essence of Fairval, we were really, coming back to the roots at the end of the day because, human beings have survived by moving.
Exactly.
And it's like, yeah, it's so core to the way we live, because that's how cities, like you say, are organized. So definitely, this is echoing perfectly with what we're doing here on our
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. Humans and cargo. So
Exactly.
that also moves.
Excellent. So let's now move a bit more, more about MobiliTech. What about so the investment phases here? Could you tell us a bit more on how?
Yeah. So like I said, we look at mobility very wide. So that's the space we would invest. Also, I didn't talk about, we're not only discussing, what are your future vehicles or future mobility habits, but how are we going to create them in the future? So also touching the whole industry 4.0 or production 4.0, as we like to call it in automotive. So that as well can be a part of the whole new smart mobility automotive transportation era. So our investment thesis is usually we invest up to a round. We focus on early stage mobility startups. Once we invest, we really like to get to work and roll up our sleeves and help the startups grow. So usually we would look for a startup. Our sweet spot would be where there's already some kind of POC. We've only invested in one startup, which was a well-researched presentation. Mostly, we'd want to see something that is already proven in the technology, and that there's already an initial traction. So some validation from the market, from the industry, from fleets or OEMs or tier ones, whoever is the client. We invest between half to 1.5, and we look for very strong teams and strong IP. So usually we will not invest in good business models, things that are easy to replicate. We are not afraid of deep tech, and we want to see that there's a uniqueness to the technology.
Right. Very, very, very clear, very clear. And so on the focus theme now, because I imagine that because mobility is quite a wide domain, what are the key, top 4 or top 3, whatever themes you're focusing on today?
Yeah, so like on one end, you don't want to narrow it down. You want to keep it as wide as possible. So for me, everything is interesting, but I did, the beginning of 24, looking at our portfolio, we invested in a company doing solar paint, so painting a vehicle at the end of the production line, a company doing an energy harvester to self-power sensors in spaces where they cannot be powered, and they have a lot of success in the tire industry. We invested in a company which does a clip-on, clip-off turning e-drive system, turning every regular bicycle to an electric one, to a really high-powered electric one. They're called Scarper. We invested in Kapow doing wireless charging for robots, the production lines. We invested in ITC doing smart traffic management, AI-based software only using existing camera feed. And we invested in Core Actions, which do in-cabin monitoring, really making our roads safer, monitoring cognitive distraction and alcohol, impaired driving, which, I think in the future should be the same as putting on a seatbelt, and like the vehicle shouldn't let us drive if we're impaired. And so beginning of 24, looking at this very versatile portfolio, we were thinking, what are we missing here? What are we not touching? What domain? So one of them was logistics, where with the growing of e-commerce and the pandemic did it a big impact, and there were a lot of kind of last mile delivery companies, and also optimization in trucks. We saw a lot in truck fleets, but we felt like there's still room for innovation in this space since it's growing so fast and the needs are growing so fast. And we found this really amazing company, which we've just finalized the investment in, which they basically do. They empower every small business to become an Amazon online shopping, e-commerce delivery experience. So every flower shop, soap shop, wine shop, every shop that you have, focusing now in the UK. So all stores in UK are lucky because with a few clicks, they can have a whole delivery system. And basically they have really strong engine, really strong innovation that will optimize all of the routes, not only for the shops themselves, but for all of the couriers that they're working with. So they're not another company that's doing deliveries. They're actually a brain that is being able to connect everyone, optimize them, and put the right delivery for the right package, and give an owner of a business all of the opportunities that they can have as if they would have their own fleet manager with their own fleet, and have that whole experience with same day, next day. You want it cheap, you want it fast, all of the options. So we're very excited about it. This company is called Evermile. So I'm happy that's already one of these. And I think one topic that we're going around a lot and trying to look for innovation in is advanced materials. So OEMs have very strong, very clear regulation and roadmap on what they need to do in order to remove their carbon footprint. And one of these things is the materials that they're using in the vehicle. Of course, we have the whole side of electrification, which is why I'm also looking at battery health management as a whole. But advanced materials is so much more complex because there are so many ways to attack this topic. From so many angles. It can be in plastic, it can be in in steel, aluminium, rubber, glass, and there's a whole aspect now of looking not only at how materials are made, but also at the end of their life, and that whole cycle, and how you're using recycled materials, how you can recycle that same component in the end. So it's quite an interesting journey. We did also a challenge with Stellantis on circular economy, and that even deepened our interest in finding the right company to invest in that domain.
Mm-hmm.
And battery health management, I think that we have still a long way to go. Like, there's already really leading companies like CATL, which have their own good equipment, but a lot of different battery manufacturers are still looking for those solutions. And I think also the OEMs, and also the end consumers. Driving an EV, you want to get more information out of your vehicle, to understand more, the state of health of your battery and how it's going to be when you sell it, how its status is when you buy secondhand, third hand EV. Also, there's a whole regulation now on battery passports. So every battery will need to have its passport of its origin, where was it manufactured, in which vehicle it was, and then the end of the life in the vehicle to see if it's still good, so to go to second life, or not good enough, so to go to recycling. And if it goes to second life, and then maybe even a third life, at that third or fourth life, you would have like a whole passport of the battery, where it was, how many cycles it was, under which manufacturer. So the whole traceability of this, I think traceability is again a new word that's coming into automotive. Also in materials, it's becoming very clear. So yeah, there's, again, like I said in the beginning, we talked about EcoMotion and the startups. I feel like it's ever changing, this interest, the trends, the topics, what the industry is working on and how it's shifting. So it's becoming larger and larger every day.
Yeah, I think it's completely transforming, as you say, and as you were talking about batteries. If you're flying one of those new, electric airplane or what we call eVTOLs, and you want to know if it's on batteries. You want to know what's the status, and so on, and so it's really incredible how things will change in a couple of years, and I can see that accelerating. But you mentioned, as we're talking about batteries, energy is so kind of between the advanced materials you were mentioning, but also energy. What are the things, other specific items you're seeing, not necessarily that you've invested in, but you're looking at, because everything is linked in a way. We were talking about recycling materials and so on. But what are exciting things you've seen, maybe through pitches from startups, that you think might come in the area of energy?
So in the area of energy for vehicles of all sizes and shapes and forms, there's a lot of exciting things happening in the future types of batteries. A lot of talk now on sodium.
Mm-hmm.
I actually met a really cool potassium company doing
Yeah.
potassium-based batteries, which feels like even the next gen. I just saw, the CEO of Stellantis said that we need to cut the battery weight by 50%.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, people want more and more range. So we're going to have more and more technologies around that.
Yeah.
There's some really cool companies doing really cool things here, like StoreDot and Adionics. And there will be very interesting things. But I think also the whole management side, the whole health side is going to be crucial. That's the aspect I'm looking at, because I think that investing in batteries is very capital heavy. Just looking at, companies that started as startups a few years ago and where they're now and the rounds that they need, and even the rounds that they need in comparison to where they're at in terms of commercial agreements and the pace. So there's also the whole hydrogen
Yeah.
spectrum era,
Mm.
which seems like what they said in the beginning, that it will be more for commercial base, more for larger vehicles, is something that we're seeing now really deploy, because Toyota said that they will do hydrogen only, and then they came out with 13 brands of electric, um, like battery powered. So it's not as easy as they thought. I guess neither is autonomy,
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Mm.
which is a whole other thing. I'm really waiting for autonomy to happen. It's happening, I guess, slower than we all thought. But I think that's the most disruptive thing that will change the whole way we look at mobility, and how we move around, and just the ownership model of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You can look like even further into fusion and nuclear energy and all that, which of course will be the most efficient in the end. But still, today, the amount of energy being put in doesn't make sense and it's not yet where it needs to be. So, but I follow all the research on that, but it's not yet where
Mm-hmm.
where we would invest.
Interesting. Just to come back a bit on the logistic, because you were mentioning a lot of the use case of the last mile. From your point of view, um, beyond the last mile, where we also see, companies doing drone services for the last mile. I mean, Amazon was the first one. I know the gentleman who worked on that actually. Um, do you think that the logistic on the ITs, or the technology, generally speaking, has come to a certain maturity for not the last mile, but the core or the core miles, if I should speak in this way? Or do you think there's still a lot of room for progress as such?
So I think that there is a word that we used to use in like 2018 or 19, which is multimodal.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of didn't make it work, so we kind of neglected it, because they wanted to couple it with the word seamless.
Yes, I
There's
worked on
nothing
so many
seamless.
projects on that.
There's nothing seamless about multi-modeling right now. Uh, it will take maybe quantum computing to make that happen. Just in terms of all the data that is needed to manage and operate at the same time, and also not enough existing services, I guess. But so in terms of logistics, I think there's always still room to optimize, and it's just such a growing market. It's so big. Um and our habits changed. For me, like I said, I'm a mother of twins. Ever since I birthed them. I think I was, I don't know. On one hand, I can count the number of times I went to a supermarket, and there are two. So 2 years of strictly online. Not just that, it's pharma, it's their clothes, it's everything. I just need to, they require so much equipment, and you just don't have that time anymore. And ordering things is becoming so easy. So so the amount of movement of goods is just becoming crazy. But also now I think there's a big going back to localization, where pre-COVID we're very globalized, not realizing what that implicates. And
Mhm.
now we're going back to localization of produces, of services, and but even if it's close, it doesn't mean that I will go there. So still I think that there's a lot to do. Also, you know, um, maritime and aviation really hold all of this big logistics chain, and they're the biggest pollutant in our world. I think so. Aviation maybe will take more time to electrify, but there's a lot to do still in maritime logistics and optimization of that, um, which is a whole other domain. So it touches so much. And I think that also cities and big organizations are understanding at that, because now we're looking at, instead of having one huge warehouse really far away, we're looking at smaller logistics hubs to match that last mile, that availability, that uh, quickness that we're all used to now, of just ordering something and seeing the minutes until it's in my house.
Yeah.
So that whole babushka effect on logistics, I think just that is a whole thing that needs still a lot of optimization,
Yeah.
because everything I'm saying sounds beautiful, but in the end, we're not there yet.
No, and I think it's very interesting what you're saying, because what you pinpoint is really key. Is like we have for decades optimized a global systems,
Yeah,
and we realize this is not maybe the best way forward, and we have to kind
yeah,
of now optimize more local system. Which it's funny, it's cheaper sometimes to buy something which is like thousands of miles away from your home, instead of taking something which is nearer, and
yeah,
that's kind of not logical. So that's where I think there's kind of a rethinking about the whole model there, and getting this the first startup you were mentioning about around logistics, I think could be one key player where local logistic can be optimized,
yeah,
and not just the global picture, which is, of course, we still need, but we need to kind of balance everything so that we have a more homogeneous system. But yeah, you're definitely right. There's one
yeah.
thing yeah,
Just to add
please.
on that, because what I love about Evermile is that they understand that it takes more than one type of courier, or doing bicycle deliveries, or motorcycle, or vans. It's about bringing the brain that can bring everyone on board, and then optimize everyone so you have the best type of delivery for the best for the exact cargo type. And I think that's also something that not many are understanding, and also that quickness to deliver, and like create that availability on the same day, and not having, because you see a lot of really great logistics companies that are just a connection to your e-commerce. But what happens if I want to do it from my shop? What happens if, it needs to come out from one of my 3 shops? Which one to choose, how to do it, and all of that. And that hybridness that, today we're going back to hybrid in meetings, and that same hybridness is becoming a part of a lot of things in our life. So also the ability to buy from a shop and to buy from online and still support local businesses. And that's what I love about that, actually. It's the empowering of moms and pop shops.
Yeah, interesting. Just again, back on some of the things you mentioned, I'd like to come back to the advanced material because I see so many VCs are like always on the SaaS, focusing on SaaS type of businesses. And you're one of the few who are saying like, yeah, advanced material is really key because it could be, like you say, long research. Are you facing um, challenges to find really good startups in this field? Because everyone is of course going where people think they'll get some funding, less maybe on those type of topics. Is that the case, or do you see something, some kind of growth in this domain?
Yeah, I see growth in the domain. I think it's just a domain that used to go to other sectors, and now all of a sudden automotive is becoming relevant. I think the biggest questions are more on will it be something that we recycle or something that we create synthetically? So let's say, do we recycle the plastic or do we create polymers that, are less pollutant in the process and that can be then recycled? When we look at textile, how we
Mhm.
recycle textile, and then what can we do with that at the end of at the other side after it's recycled. We saw a great company from Sweden doing things from recycled wood, and another great company from Israel doing the same, but they don't want to get into automotive.
Mhm.
So it's really a matter of what material in the end will be successful. I think that in automotive, the journey is long also because materials is such a core aspect of automotive, and it's such a legacy industry. So there's really specifications that you have to meet. And these specifications are usually the minimum requirements. They want to see you pass those. And
Mhm.
the level of sturdiness, the strength, the ability to perform well even in high temperatures and crash tests and all of these things. So I think that for advanced materials, it's even like automotive it's harder because it's not home decor, something that it's a tile on a wall that now, instead of cutting down new trees, we can use recycled ones and create really cool tiles. It's something that needs to be in rain, in sun, in snow, and God forbid accidents, and just to know that it's not going to be endangering lives.
Mhm.
So I think more the questions are, in the end, one, what will meet the automotive grade? Two, what will win um, in terms of materials? Because sometimes there are things that, in order to recycle them, you're putting in also a lot of energy. So is it efficient in the end, or maybe just to
Mhm.
create something from scratch, but in a more chemical synthetic way uh, that doesn't require that much energy? I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm still in the
Oh,
questions myself.
yeah.
So I can say that I think that in the end, the market is so big and it's just starting. And I don't think it's going to be a one solution fits all. So there will be room for many different actors. But I think now is the time, because now is the time that they're looking for the solutions to start putting them in play into the supply chain. So they're looking for the future tier twos at the moment in the terms of advanced materials, and yeah, I think it's exciting to think that our future vehicle can be so much more efficient in the way it's produced, and so much less pollution that we're putting in landfill. In textile, it's crazy the amount of textile that ends up in landfill. And also, we all know, like, even in movies, those whole graveyards of vehicles, and to think that this is going to be a thing of the past. OEMs are really now thinking how they're going to dismantle the vehicles at the end of their lifetime and recycle or reuse or reman all of them, all of the parts. So it's really beautiful for me, this impact that we had until now in the world as an industry, and the impact that we will have going forward.
Yeah, definitely. One last thing on the themes I like to dig into is the AI, because you kind of touch base on a couple of use
Yeah,
cases. We talked about,
right. I
one of
told you
this.
also in AI. AI is like it's like saying impact, right? It's like everything is AI.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you mentioned autonomous, cars or whatever, autonomous mobility. We talked about the startup you invested, which is, managing the traffic, and this is probably a
Yeah.
big AI, driven. And one of the question, as you were you mentioned also quantum computing, and I was thinking to myself, because when generative AI started to to be deployed with OpenAI, but that's not the only one. That kind of struck me, some especially coming from Farewell point of view, was like, if I was an investor, would I invest actually on the startup coming with a use case in my field, so in mobility, or would I actually now come back to the bases, like the deep tech, the ones who are really working on the underground system, like the generative AI? You can see how many application it can have, and I'm linking that to quantum computing, because at the end of the day, there is kind of a link in the power, how much power you need to become even more clever in this type of technology. So, is this a question you're asking yourself when you're seeing AI companies? You're saying, yeah, maybe those guys, they have a great solution, but they might be maybe obsolete, because they'll be depending on, I actually, it's like telephone, who the one who hold the OS, the iOS, has a lot of power. So is this things coming to your big questions when you meet a company for investment?
So for us, I think the advantage of our fund, because there's a lot of general funds out there and they're doing great, and they're exactly looking for those cross enablers. For us, our advantage is to really help startups succeed deeply in the automotive mobility logistics world. um so it's more about how we see things rather than what the startups offer, because they can offer amazing things, and and it just won't be a fit for us. But in terms of AI, it is very wide. For us, we would invest in AI which is an end specific use case. So not something that is creating a platform for all. Although we do look at startups that they don't have to be just mobility focused, because and it's okay if they're looking at other sectors. Okay, so corrections can be, for example, on helmets of employees at production lines. They can be doing a bunch of things. They can, Enervibe with the energy harvester can be in wearables. They can be in IoT for Industry 4.0. They can be in medical devices. They can be in many different industries. But for us, we'll want to see that automotive mobility traction. And I would say that it's okay because since automotive mobility is so slow in cycles, so in the meanwhile, developing another sector that can create earlier revenue is great. Investors like that. In terms of AI, I would look more at startups which create specific use cases. So within the world of the journey experience, within the world of future manufacturing, within the world of optimization, of the journey itself, if it's in mobility. Today, I think AI is used as a tool rather than as the final solution. So still, though, looking at that, it is a very hot topic, and it is going to change a lot of the things that we do. I always say, the future of mobility is kind of like what the future of telecom was in the year 2000, because like there were a lot of investments in the field, created more bandwidth, and a lot of people invested in applications, if you remember, like app. Today apps are free. And investing in like all of these things, in the end they didn't know that we'll all be in a flat screen. It's a standard today, right? But we didn't know that in the year 2000, and we didn't know also what will that entail. So the fact that we invested so much in Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, now 5G, but back then, in the ability to download fast information, upload fast data. Before it was like for music, right? We had like Godzilla or things like that, if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
Downloading music, it was like these were like the crazy things. We could download a song in like an hour and then listen to it again and again. So, but what it actually created is the feed. Okay, the feed, the ability of having a feed changed our lives. It created social media. It created the ability to know a lot of information fast from all over the world. It created the ability for everyone to share their own personal stories. You don't have to be on CNN to share your story. Like, I can now share my story to the world. And that really changed our world. So how the .com bubble changed our world today, how we all communicate, interact, we're able to do these types of conversations. And I think this mobility era, where we're doing kind of trial and error, putting a lot on AVs, and then now putting a lot of EVs, but everything is happening simultaneously, and we're focused a lot on the journey experience, but we're actually focused a lot on just making vehicles move right now and having that infrastructure to be able to hold it. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be in a different space. And I think that we don't know yet. We don't know yet what the flat screen will be, although we all have flat screens now in our vehicles, which is also funny. But now, what will that flat screen entail? That's the biggest question.
Yeah.
How will my car changed my life the same way my phone changed my life? Today, I manage 95% of my life through my phone. What will I do in my car? if I own it. So that I think is, I think we don't even understand yet. We can think, we can, there's like a lot of everyone is talking about services, and they always give the example of heated seats. So you'll be able to download heated seats, but it's kind of like the apps that I was referring to in the document. It's kind of like the 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 um, the granted. I'm very interested in like what is what is what is the ungranted? What will that enable that we're not even aware yet that it will enable? Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be like journey TikTok type of things, like people just recording themselves driving places, singing in their car. They're doing it already on Instagram and TikTok, right? Like a lot of people are recording from their cars. You know, but it's so I don't know. I'm just I'm spilling my brain to you.
No, and I think
This is where I go in my mind.
yeah. No, I think you're right to say that mobility has been, seen as in a kind of contextual usage. You do this, but mobility actually could be a much more intrusive use case at the end of the day in your life, which not just for the sake of mobility at the end of the day. And that's something that we don't yet understand, because our habits will change, the way we live. So that's because the cities will change, the way we can go from a point A to point B won't be the same constraint. So everything will, and I agree with you. It's like we are not yet projecting ourselves sufficiently to see how that will look. I only have personally a really strong conviction that there'll be a deep transformation compared to what we're doing today, and what will be maybe in 10 or maybe before. It'll just go, we'll say, remember, we were used to do that. I in one of the podcasts, I was reminding to the interviewee that, remember, for hotels, we used to go in the hotel to have a room. We didn't book anything. And you say that to your kid, they're like, really? You didn't book a hotel room? You would go in the hotel, get in and get a room? That doesn't, no, you of course go on your telephone and you go on booking.com and you just book a room. So it's just the habits, the change of, um, the relation between the service and, the way you travel, or you move from one place to the other. So that's quite, exciting.
Remember, we used to press 3 times 1 in order to get to the letter C.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not so long ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. So, one thing I wanted to ask you now, back on the VC, process, type of thing, is when you actually, um, get, you exchange with a startup, beyond the thematic alignment with the startup, what are the key factors you really scrutinize to make an investment decision, and what actually are the red flags you're like, oh, this is not looking good? I mean, just for the startuppers to realize, how, what's in the
How
mind of
they're being measured?
exactly, yeah.
Well, first of all, vibe. I understood in my career that it's uh, only worthwhile doing great things with great people. So as a startup, I think it doesn't matter how cool your technology is. If you are a human that doesn't have is arrogant or all these things that would be a turnoff, I think that it's I think the most inspiring leaders are the most humble. Of course, there's out of the equation people like Elon Musk, but but I think it's definitely vibe and chemistry. In the end, I believe, that business is done between humans. The logo doesn't wake up in the morning. And if there's good chemistry, that you can do good business. And if there isn't, then you can't. It's just not going to work. I think that there are some startups that come unprepared. I really admire the ones that are, they know their shit. Like they know their market, they know their clients, they know the numbers, they know their sphere. It's like they live and breathe their domain. So I think that's definitely a good thing. Um, I think, the first thing that you see is the deck, and I think it's like your what's it called in the shops?
Yeah, the
Vitrine.
vitrine, yeah.
Comment tu dis vitrine en anglais?
um, the shelf.
Window shop, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. So that, but I think also, your data room is like your home, and I think some entrepreneurs don't give enough attention to their data room.
Mhm.
Um, how well organized, how coherent it is between the numbers and the data,
Yeah.
how deep it is, how that it covers all aspects that need to be covered. I think there's something funny about startups when they're doing competitive analysis. They don't really do a competitive analysis, which is fine, I guess. But it's okay to have competition. Just show, how what you're bringing new to the table. Because especially in mobility, in automotive specifically, like if you're not saving money or making more money for your clients, then it's just going to be a no.
Mm.
So it cannot be we're just doing it better, because in the end you need to either reduce the BOM or, create a new revenue stream. So I think those kinds of, like, those would be my highlights.
Yeah.
Um
What would be the red flag then? What would be you like? This is really off-putting. I mean, you wouldn't invest in a startup for something which is that's a first no-go. I have something in mind because you mentioned the type of startup you invest, which I would imagine.
what would you imagine?
Well, if you're investing in a deep tech company, I mean, I mean, I'm French, and sometimes French we really like the scientific thing. We tend to forget about the pragmatic aspects. So I don't know if you see some of those companies across which they have, like you said many times, they have a fantastic solution, but do they have a market at the end of the day? So that's really something which we see a lot. We see a lot of companies. I see a lot of companies who are in love with their tech, but not with their market. So I don't know if that's something which you're really focus on those aspects or not.
Well, now more. I think my biggest tip to startups is that, so I've been a lot of years on the macro level. I was myself an entrepreneur, and then a lot of years on the macro level of innovation, and now 3 years really like digging deep in each startup. And I really see a difference between a tech lead leaded startup and a business leaded startup. Like
Mm,
if the business is leading, usually it's going to be more successful because then the business drives commercial interactions, and then you build the solutions to exactly the needs when the business leads. When the technology leads, like you said, sometimes you fall in love with your technology and then it's very hard to move. Sometimes you're just in a loop trying to make it better and better and better instead of like going out there already and trying to sell it and understanding that you're doing something as like near but not exactly. So definitely I think that the biggest tip for entrepreneurs would be get a really strong CEO very early on. I've seen how it transformed things, even in spaces where I thought that it wouldn't be necessary so early on. Even with Solor, let's say, we had Gabriel join us, which was the CEO of Given Imaging, the company that they developed a camera in a pill, so you would swallow it and then it would film everything inside. And he took it from an idea to an IPO, then a sale of $1 billion. And
mm,
we and it was a beautiful match with Solor. And for me, Solor was so chemistry, deep technology, um but bringing someone in so early on with this business mindset really made an impact. And I think it's really showing also within the company, even in the lab, the way that they're doing things, recording things, the way that they're
mm.
advancing, the way that they're looking at commercialization. The roadmap is so much clearer, and it's really transformed. So it doesn't mean that you have to bring a business early on, even just if you're software and you guys can like change the code overnight.
Mm.
It's really in all aspects. So and a lot of times I see um startups where the inventor is trying to be the CEO as well, and it just doesn't work. And sometimes it takes to too long for them to bring us an external CEO, and then sometimes it's just too late.
Yeah.
Like the new CEO can do some magic, usually for a round or for like the next round and bringing like new life, but sometimes it's just too late. So I really think that early on there needs to be someone very business oriented on the team, um and to let the business lead.
Yeah. One of the things I usually say to startup advice is really to remind the founding team that they're investors. That's their first job, is they're investing in their company. And
Yeah.
so they have to think about what's going to be best for the company to succeed. Not It's not a question of it's my baby, and that's quite hard to understand because it's not the way the mental path they took originally when they decided to found a company. So that's quite of a challenge. But when they get it, they can go really fast. But it's true that it's a message which I try to pass on very early in the process so that they can really get on with it and make sure that and align the objectives between the founders, because sometimes one of them will be not really trying to build a business, it just wants to do that project, that's all. So it's kind of once you understand that, you can really have the right communication so that they can align, and like you say, maybe hire a proper CEO if there's some issues there. So yeah, definitely. One.
Even if it's your baby, I think that for your baby you would want the best education, the
There we
best
are.
time, the best home,
Yeah.
the best growth.
Mm, that's
um
true.
so and it doesn't mean that you have to let go. No, you need to be still active as a co-founder. You need to still be, you can also bring more business, to the company. Even if you're, a CTO, it doesn't mean that you cannot bring any,
Oh yeah.
any deals in. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that for the sake of your baby to, focus on what's the best thing you can bring it, you can offer it. So again, even if it's a baby, you would want the best education for them,
Yeah,
the best
yeah.
growth.
Definitely, it's definitely. I'm just thinking there was one counterexample when, if you remember the series of Silicon Valley, when they brought in the CEO, it was a disaster. And
It can be a disaster. It can really be a disaster. So this is the best time to hire slow and fire fast. Like the saying, I really, for me, when I hire people, it will be like, I fall in love in 30 seconds with my partner. I fell in love with in 30 seconds. And the same way I want when I hire someone, I want them to walk into the room and say, wow, I want to work with that person. Something about them, that's just the chemistry, the spark. But for leading a company that I built, I would take the process slow. Like, I would need that first spark, but I would want to, really make sure and develop that relationship, because a lot of people, and this is, it's not their fault. A lot of people say things that they think they are, or they think that others think they are, but is not always the case. One, two, we're not telepathic. So for me to say, I want you to be the CEO of my company, and for me to actually explain to you how I see the role of the CEO of the company, is two different things. Because you can see the role of the CEO is one thing, and I can see it as a whole other thing. And we have to align on that. What does it mean to be the CEO of the company that I built? Like, I want to focus on the technology, but this is our organizational behavior. We work 24 hours. Everyone has mud under our nails. Everything is done for yesterday, da 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 da. Or we're very 9 to 5 company. We prioritize really well. We do standing dailies, like beginning and end of the day. We all start at 8 a.m. or, it's very fluid. Like, there is already some kind of structure, and both sides need to align on, do we have the same values? Same in a relationship. Like, you're looking, like, the people that we work with, we're more with them than the people that we choose for marriage.
it's
So
true.
this we need to put the same amount of effort in the dating to decide, are we moving in together? Really, when I would hire people, I would do the interviews and everything, and the last interview would be a beer. Like, let's grab a beer together. I want to see that you're a person I can enjoy, having a glass of wine with, and having you in my life. Because once we start to work together, you're in my life. You're on my WhatsApp, you're on my emails, you're in my office. I see you every morning. I want to be happy to see you, and I want to, love our interactions and find them inspiring, and to have this contra thinking, and to be able to, grow together. And it's not a list.
Yeah,
And also, these lists are very, they're very simply put, and there's so much more on the values that are behind them, and like the way we see the world, um the way, we want to live, the way we want to work, the way we want our organization to work, and to present itself also internally and externally to the outside. How are we towards our clients? How are we towards our suppliers?
yeah,
It's a lot of things to discuss.
I agree. I agree.
And if there aren't the right discussions, it can be a disaster
Yeah.
bringing in.
But that's yeah. But that's why, I mean, again, when I mean, I always say to the startup I work with is like, when you're going to, gets a VC on board, he's gonna be actually your best friend. So he
Oh,
needs to be.
investors is a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So but it's still a kind of people relation at the end of the day. If you are talking about an active VC, not someone just putting money, it's
Yeah.
so that's why the chemistry has to happen. Otherwise,
Has to happen.
it's a disaster. I've seen disasters happen. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, definitely. I'd like to move on to another topic, which is the fact that you founded Women in Mobility.
Yes.
And I was curious to get your views on what are the most significant insights you gathered from this initiative so far.
Ha. Two are my top insights to be dealt with at the moment because founding Women in Mobility 5 years ago, I just wanted to grow the amount of women we have in the field and to create a platform for them to exchange opportunities and share challenges and provide them tools for growth, both personally and professionally. Today I understand that in the research I've been doing in the last 2 years, I understand that the biggest problem is that we don't have enough women in executive positions and in leadership and around the decision-making tables. And basically what's happening is that we're creating products and services that aren't always accessible to or inclusive for women. And they don't match the requirements that women need. And I have examples for this from private vehicles to public transportation to micromobility to infrastructure to everything. Okay.
Mhm.
There's not enough women around the decision making table. And this is hurting us. This is hurting our society. This is hurting the way, we we consume our services. And like we said in the beginning, movement is for everyone. Mobility is a basic right for all, and it should be accessible to all and personalized to match all of everyone's abilities.
Could you give an
So,
example? Because I think it would be very insightful for anyone listening, because I think people actually sometimes it's ignorance as well. And maybe
yeah.
one or two example would be really kind of maybe helping the people to realize how, critical it is.
Yeah, I know people are ignorant. The other day, I had my friend send me a selfie of them in a room, having a meeting in a room full of men. And I'm asking them, wow, so many men, like, what are you doing in this meeting? And they said, we're changing the world. And I told them, well, you can't change the world if there aren't any women around the table. And, this is the bottom line of everything. But okay, biggest example. So crash test dummy of women were only introduced in the 70s. And they're actually not really representing a body of a woman. They're 5 percentile of the population, meaning only 5% of the women match this body size.
Oh, okay.
What happens is that in harsh accidents, women have 74% more chances to get hurt and 17 more percent chances to die. So I think almost 20% more is like 1 in every 5 cases. It's a lot more
Mhm.
percent to die just because, we're not doing this correctly. Seatbelts do not match 60% of the women in third trimester. While they are, third trimester is a time where like you're trying to keep your fetus in like the safest environment, but basically you do not know that being in a vehicle is endangering yourself and your fetus. And this is 50% of the
Yeah,
population.
yeah, yeah. Mm.
And also I'm looking, at these future technologies that we're doing at the moment, and we're just doing everything automated and digitalized. We're not even rethinking, okay, income sensing. Wow, I can change the way safety is being done. Right now, we're just monitoring how many times people blink or if they yawn.
Mm.
why not, see the human, analyze them, and say, and have the car optimize my seating position, mirrors, seat belt, and everything to be best optimized for my safety. Like all of these things, we're not taking it to the last mile. And this is exactly what I've been talking about, before, when we said, like, what is going to be our flat screen,
Mm,
social media,
mhm, mhm.
95% managing my life. How is that going to transform in the vehicle? And we're only in the beginning, only in
Yeah,
the beginning there. And there's so much more to do. Most cases of sexual harassments are in or start in public transportation.
yeah, yeah. Mm,
We're not addressing that correctly. We're not putting in the technologies needed to address that correctly. Micromobility, a lot of the micromobility operators came out with kick scooters that were too big for women. Tel Aviv municipality was one of the first cities in the world to come out with bike share bicycle, but they were too big for women to use, or small people. It doesn't have to
mhm.
be women, there's small humans. So when you think of these things, you have to, so you see also, and I know the company doing it, you see that there was no woman around the table, or maybe only one, and then she couldn't say it, or it was like but not enough women, I would say, around the table that would say, I can't write that. And
Yeah.
this is supposed to be for all citizens.
Mhm.
I can't write that. So just in a nutshell, but there's so much we can do, so much we can do. And so to go back, I think it's not that there's not enough women, it's that there's not enough women in leadership position. And once we do have that, then we will see also a transformation. And I think this movement towards sustainable mobility is something that women will be able to lead.
Mhm.
Um, and now is the greatest opportunity. This is why also I'm going to incorporate women in mobility into a company for the public good. It's a new type of nonprofit, which is more under like the corporate law rather than the NGO law here. But I understand that I need large amounts of money to create large programs in order to create the impact that is needed yesterday. We need to move fast on this. And the only way to heal our world, because our world doesn't, you know, turning on the news, I try not to, because it's there's too much suffering in the world. And the only way to heal it is to bring more women also to leadership.
Mhm.
So again, the task is bigger than I thought it would be in the beginning. And we're stepping it up now.
Very good. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Um, one of the last question, we're nearly to the end, is I wanted to talk about your podcast, Energy on Air,
Hmm.
which is around everything with energy. And I was surprised when you say it's only in Hebrew, which means that there is that to say that there is this, I mean, Israel is like the one of the place where there's always been a lot of innovation. And my question is that is there a specific strong interest around everything around energy in Israel at the moment? Can you provide some examples which illustrate, or anecdotes which illustrate this question or statement?
Yeah. So it's not just in Israel. I think the electrification of mobility made energy sexy. Alternative energy has been around for the last 2 decades, starting with solar and wind and
Mm,
all of the other types, and now with the strong movement towards electrification and carbon neutrality. So energy has become very sexy, not only in Israel, I think globally. The goal with the podcast was um, to make it accessible for all. So I think there's a lot of really good podcasts in English uh, for in the world on the topics of energy and e-mobility. And the goal was to make it accessible and also to make it so, my aunt can understand.
Mm.
Because these revolutions are coming into our homes. This is not the future of, this is the present. And so how do we now explain, that you're so now we're doing a big transition towards smart metering. You can change electric companies like you change your cell phone provider. Until now, this was like something we couldn't even think of. There's like one main electric company for the country and everyone subscribed to it. And now there's like a big change. And all of a sudden, that's because before we used to get cell phone bills of $200, $300, right? And now you're paying like 19.
Mm-hmm.
So these trend like that, and again, I think the telecom did a huge transformation, and I keep going back to it if you can see, because I
Yeah,
think there's a lot to learn from the telecom
mm,
revolution.
that is true.
And the same revolution is coming into now the energy and mobility revolution. And that is going to cut costs on energy, and the cut on costs will enable more things to produce or to to move. People sometimes would think how much they're paying for gas, and maybe rethink the road trip in the weekend. What if it costs a few dollars now to charge your vehicles? It opens up a whole new world to you. So that was the goal. And not only that, it was the goal also of having the ability to maybe touch people that are at a crossroad thinking what industry to go to, and trying to show them how impactful ours is, and to get more people to join this revolution and to help create this better future. But also we have a lot of people from professionals from the ecosystem doing one thing, and then all of a sudden they want to like they can learn in 20 minutes on nuclear energy, on hydrogen,
Mm-hmm.
on solar, wind, on electric motorcycles, on e-scooters, on electric cars. How is it different? How is looking at the purchase of an electric vehicle different than everything we did today? And what's the process? Until now, you bought a car, you didn't buy the gas station with it, and now you're like getting a charging station. How does that work? And everyone's just like, ugh, I don't want to charge. Ugh. But you're driving out somewhere to go and charge your vehicle, like to go and pump it with gas, and it's like out of your way. You're coming to your home every day. So what's, that's supposed to be more convenient. So, but there's a lot of things still to shift in the mindset. So that's mainly
Okay.
that's mainly why I think why we're doing it. And that's it really touches many different people in different points.
Interesting. Very interesting. So we're reaching the end of the podcast. I'd just like to close the podcast with one last question, which is really what are the things you foresee the promising long-term technologies? We already talked a lot of long-term things,
Yeah.
changes. I don't know if there's anything that pops up into your mind in addition to what we already talked about, but that's kind of the any point you want to raise on that would be interesting.
So one thing we haven't discussed, I think, is eVTOLs,
Mm,
because we kind of touched on many of the different, revolution topics. And I think so. eVTOLs is $1 trillion trillion market. So the same market we have on ground is this replicated to the air. And for that, people think, that's even farther away. But with COVID, they opened the sky because they understood that we have to have a way to transport at least like medicine and goods and things without human contact. And all of a sudden, it's reignited, and we've seen really big investments also in different companies, and we've seen how also OEMs and energy companies are doing a play in this. Airlines is such a heavy operation, so cost effective and so expensive, and it's like so affected by politics and the cost of a gasoline barrel, and so affected in times like COVID and then post COVID, and then and in the end, we're going to shift this door to door, I call it, to roof, and I can't wait for that, because for me, this revolution will enable us to work and live in different places than we do today. My dream would be to live in the north in a vineyard and, just have like a lot of land. But I don't want to travel 3 hours a day to get to my meetings in the center city of Tel Aviv, So Zoom is helpful, and it's really great to have this virtual, but you have to still maintain. I really believe in human interaction and really this physical contact, and especially meeting startups. I think that a lot of them don't do well on Zoom, and I really just want to feel the human. So first or second meeting have to be physically. And I think that this is just going to change a lot of things. The Hyperloop shut down, but then think if that worked, you could actually like live in New York and work in Paris. So these big leaps of transformations, I feel, will have huge impacts once they're standardized. And I think that eVTOLs will really enable us to live differently.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I always say, if you have a lot of money, spare money, you should invest in real estate, in lands, because I think a lot of the lands will take more value than what they are today. So, as like you say, we can fly easily.
Real estate is always a good idea.
Yes.
Real estate is always a good idea. I always, my father always said, it's something to buy more, not to sell. You just need to find the way to get more. I wish we all could, but yeah, I think I totally agree. I think that and this can exactly change, because now cheaper land, which is in the suburbs, can all of a sudden become prime location to have your eVTOL parked in the backyard. And like that's I wanted to get a helicopter license for my 40th birthday, although now I've been hearing so many accidents on them. So it's even in Amnon Shashua, the founder of Mobileye, did an accident on a helicopter, and I was like, but we have the same mindsets. He's learning that as well, and it's just tragic. But but yeah, with like, predictive maintenance and all of these things that come in, and our ability to foresee and optimize and bring AI into play, being the best pilot in the world, and being able to monitor malfunctions before they happen and mitigate all the risks. Although there will always be a risk, but mitigate them as much as possible. I think that it's one of the greatest opportunities that I really hope we would live to see. Because I think my daughters will not get a license, and I see already now my younger cousins that are reaching the age of a license are really lazy doing it. They take, like, for us, we were counting the days until we could start doing lessons and get that. And they're really not interested. They want to be on their phones. They're cool with public transportation.
That's true.
And yeah, and they just want to be taken places.
Yeah. True what you say. It's what I see also in the same thing. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for this great insights that you shared with us, Orlie. It was really fantastic.
My
Um,
pleasure. It was fun to talk to you.
yeah, definitely fun, and let's keep in touch. And thank you for the audience for listening to this podcast. And we'll see you to the next one. Thank you, Orlie. Bye bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to the podcast, Creating Value in Travel and Transportation, from Fairval. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to it. We welcome your support, feedback, and suggestions, and we hope to see you at the next podcast. Fairval, Creating Value in Travel and Transportation.